Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Dicey devices. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Dicey Devices by Origami Whale. Now this is a current Kickstarter campaign, so you can check out the link down below for everything that they have planned. This is a sponsored video, and this is also a prototype copy in front of me, so all rules, components, and things like that are subject to change. In Dicey Devices, you're going to be playing as a mad scientist trying to power up your death ray. Now you have your laboratory at your disposal where you're trying to have a certain amount of set collection, which is going to help you power up, but you also have your Igor and your different robots that you'll be able to dispatch, spend your scrap, and use that to upgrade your laboratory. So everyone's going to be shooting these death rays all across the board at everyone, and even if you are incapacitated by a death ray, you're not out for the whole game. So players are trying to take out their opponents, and if you are the only scientist not incapacitated, that's how you win the game. So you hopefully flip everyone over to their incapacitated side, but that being said, when it is your turn, you do have a chance to revive. So you are able to revive yourself and be back in the game, and even if you aren't able to revive yourself that turn, you're still actively competing against everyone else, and perhaps people will be shooting lasers at each other, and then you can revive yourself and be the last scientist standing. Now, the game is currently set up for 3 players, as you can see by the 3 different colors of robots over here in the scrapyard, but I do only have 1 player set up in front of you, so this would be the laboratory for the pink player, as well as their death ray, which shows their set collection. So both of these components each player is going to have in front of them, and you're going to mostly be focusing on building out your laboratory here, but this general scrapyard is going to be something that all players are interacting with. Now, each player is going to have 6 phases that they're going to play through, and during these phases, all players are going to be very interested in what's happening, and some of them are going to have a bit of player interaction, but each player, when they have this marker, is going to be able to go through 6 phases of their turn before this passes on to the next player to their left. So, starting off, you are going to be able to revive your character if you need to. So, players are going to be powering up their death rays and then taking blasts at other players, and if it is successful, you will flip over to your incapacitated side, showing that you need to be revived by your Igor. Now, in order to be revived, you can do this in one of 2 ways. So the first thing you can do right off the bat is try rolling these dice. And if you are able to roll doubles, then you are able to revive yourself. So you can see that I rolled a 1 and a 2 here, and there are ways for you to bank dice, but we unfortunately did not roll doubles in this instance. Now, if we were still incapacitated, if we had 6 scrap to be able to spend, we would be able to spend that to revive ourselves as well. So when you are incapacitated, your Igor is placed over here, and he needs to try to save you. So if we had either the scrap or rolled doubles, we would be able to place him back over here on his perch and flip this card back over, showing that we are now able to go on to the blast phase. If we were incapacitated, we would not be able to go on to phase 2, which is blast. We would move on to phase 3 of the lab. But phase 2 is going to be when you blast, which is going to be here with your death ray. Now, your death rays are going to make a bit more sense in a moment, but what you're trying to do is get this set collection to make your blasts better. So you can see here having 3 devices of the same color will gain you a set, 4 devices of the same color will also gain you a set, or 4 different colors or 5 different colors, because there are 5 total colors in the game: pink, red, yellow, green, and blue. So if you were able to have 4 blue of the same kind, that means that inherently you would also have 3 blue. So when you are working toward the set collection of a same color, it will reward you for having that 4th one, giving you 2 blasts. So just for the sake of this example, we'll say that we have 4 different colors as well as 4 blues. Now, this would be the cards placed out here into your laboratory, and some cards, such as this prototype, would not count. As you can see, it does not have a color listed above it. So some things won't count toward it, but anything that has the color listed is going to count toward this set collection for you. Now, when you go on to your blast phase, you are trying to incapacitate your opponents, and to do so, when you have 1 set, you're going to roll 1d6, which is going to be a simple blast. Now, your opponent also will roll a d6 to contest against this, so if we were doing a simple blast, we would roll our 1d6, which would be a 5. Our opponent would defend against it, it, which is a 3, and because ours is higher, we would be successful in doing that blast. Now for each blast, you can select your opponents, meaning that if you're in a 3-player game and you have 3 blasts, you can direct 1 toward one opponent and 2 toward the other, or all 3 toward one opponent if they have that many shields. Because when you are hit with a blast, if you do have a shield, you are able to take this charge out and have that incur the damage. Otherwise, if we were hit with a blast, that's when you would flip over to your incapacitated side. Now, for 2 sets, which would be a super blast, you're able to roll 2d6 and choose the higher. So in this instance, we would be able to roll our 2d6. There's a 5 and a 6, so we would choose the 6, why not? And then our opponent would be able to roll against us, and they rolled a 1. Now, in the event where you would roll the same as your opponent, you would re-roll, but if you're lucky enough to have 3 or more sets, you're able to do a nuke blast instead. And this is going to be rolling a d12. So in this instance, we did 4 damage, which honestly we rolled a little bit higher on the d6, but that's okay. Another thing that this would mean is that that's the number of blasts that you're able to do. So for 1 set, you're able to do a simple blast and only do 1 damage, but for 2 sets, you're able to do 2 different blasts, and with this nuke blast, for the number of sets, you're able to do that many blasts. Now, another thing to note is that players can only have up to 2 shields. So if you are able to attack and blast successfully more than those 2, you are of course going to be able to incapacitate them, but looking around at the play area, you're going to want to see who has shields as well as whose turn is next, because as everyone is getting more and more powerful, you're going to want to see who might be attacking each other for you, and then you might try to not make yourself a target and attack in certain places instead. Now, another thing to note is that when your death ray is active, that's when you will place it up on your board. So it will be down when it is not yet active, and then once you have at least 1 set available, you will place it up. Whenever you gain a set, you're also going to gain one of these cards over here. So you are going to have these different upgrades. For example, this one is a Desperado Shot. If you have no charge cubes, gain an extra shot. Now, here you can see that where we have 3 different sets, we would have 3 of these available for this person. And if you ever remove one, then you would choose which one to get rid of, shuffle it back into the deck, and when you gain another set again, you would be able to gain another card. Now, these Death Ray module cards can absolutely make or break the game, because this is how your scientist is going to be unique. They're going to be quirky. You're going to have all these different abilities that you're able to pay into, but sometimes there are going to be ones that you don't like. So during the blast phase, before you blast, you are able to spend 2 scrap to draw 2 new module cards, pick which one you'd like, and replace one of your cards that you didn't like. So there is a little bit there where you're able to customize your different modules, and if you decide that you don't like one or it's not good for you, it won't matter with your sets. You can keep all of your sets active and try to switch out those module cards before your blast phase as long as you have the scrap to pay for it. Now, next is going to be your lab phase, which is going to be extremely interactive with the board that you have. So all players are going to have their pocket battery, and you're able to flip this to whichever side you want to gain the resource. So for example, this one would be gaining you a scrap, whereas the other one would be able to allow you to move an inactive bot over to your deployable bots area. So it's going to have you be able to use your bots, which is going to help over in this area here. Now, the next phase is going to be the lab phase, which is going to be one of the most strategic parts of the game, and that's when you're interacting with your lab that you have built out. So the first thing you're going to do is use your pocket battery, and you're going to choose what side you want it to be on, because that will gain you a resource. So you're either going to gain a scrap, which will help you either buy things, heal yourself, stuff like that, or you're also able to gain an inactive bot into your deployable bots area. So if you decide that you need more bots, you may choose to use that side. Otherwise, gaining scrap is always a good idea. So you can choose to place this anywhere and activate that particular thing. And then after that, players are going to roll these 2 lab dice here. So we will roll our lab die, and as you can see, we have a 4 and a 4, which is very unique. You are able to combine them to activate a row over here. As you can tell, you would need it to activate a 7, 8, or 9, or even if you had a 2 and a 2, you would be able to combine those to activate the 4. Now, when you're activating certain areas, you're activating that area as well as anything to the left. So, for example, if we chose to slot our 4 over here, we would be activating this card as well as our prototype. Now, another thing that you're able to do, because we cannot place both of these here in our 4, you cannot activate the same place twice, you're also also able to bank die. So we would be able to use this here. Then you will be able to choose an inactive bot or a deployable bot, which if you have some inactive, I suggest using that one, and you'll be able to slot it into the board. Now, this is going to be a 4 that we're going to be able to use in the future for our roles, either for a defensive role, a blast role, perhaps when we are rolling to revive ourselves with Igor, or even for a 4 to add to any of these if we wanted to activate a higher number. So you are able to slot these, and there's no restriction on when you need to use them, but you can only have 1 die of every type reserved, and this does use up your bots. So you may choose to use them because you want your bot pieces back if you have too many banked, but otherwise this can be a really good idea for you. So for our turn, we could bank 1 and then use the other one, and our pink card here, as you can see, you're going to gain these resources no matter what, and then we're going to get this pink card, which is move 1 of your active bots to an adjacent sector, and combo, which would be if we had a pink card orthogonally adjacent to this, we would be able to destroy 1 bot in that sector. So where we are the pink player, we would be able to move this bot to over here, and we would be able to potentially destroy 1 bot in that sector if we had another pink card available. Now, additionally, we would be able to activate our prototype, which is Bot and Bakken 1.0. Destroy an enemy in a shared sector, then recall an active bot from that sector to your deployable section. So we would be able to destroy this enemy here, get rid of their bot. That would go into their active bots, and then this one would be able to go into our deployable section up here. Now, you would activate it and then place a token over here to show that you did so, because during the cleanup phase, you will flip after 2 activations. Now, I will show you what this prototype does now, because all players at the beginning of the game are going to be dealt 2 prototypes, and then you choose which one you want to start off with. So this one is going to then give you the ability to move an active bot to an adjacent sector, destroy an enemy bot in any shared sector, then recall your active bot from that sector to your deployable section. So you can see where this can be very powerful to remove bots from the scrapyard, which I'll get into in a moment why that can be very important. Now, another thing that's very interesting to note is that the resources here you would gain is a bot, so we would take an inactive bot and put it into our deployable area, as well as gaining the scrap here. But this symbol is if this was activated by doubles, for example, if we had a 2 and a 2 over here, we would be able to activate this column as opposed to the row, which is very special for this particular area. As you can see, you can also do it over here and over here, as well as up here. So those are going to be a few different spots that are very special where you may choose to use your doubles in that specific area, and that may be a reason for you to use a banked die to meet with that as well. Now, as I said, this lab phase is going to be extremely important because you're going to be choosing what cards get placed out into your lab to hopefully have combos trigger, and you're also going to want to be sure that you are filling in cards to the right of all of your all your rows, because your rows are going to be able to activate everything to the left of it, meaning that you may try to fill in certain rows before going for others because you want to activate all of those cards together. Now, next is going to be the collect phase, which is when you're going to look at dominance over here. So I am going to place these cubes back out just for the example, but if you remember, we rolled a 4 and a 4, and those are going to be very special because when you roll doubles, you're actually only activating 1 sector, but then you're going to place one of these tiles out instead. So here, for example, we would take our 4s and place them over here, and then this sector modifier would be placed to permanently affect this sector. So this one, for example, is a compactor. When activated, all players must destroy a bot here and gain a scrap, then activate normally. So you can see where this is both good and bad because we didn't know that this would be here, and our bot will unfortunately get destroyed. So we would gain a scrap, but we actually wouldn't have any bots left here to have dominance. Now, dominance is going to be, as you can see over here, whoever has the most cubes placed in that area. So where this 4 is being activated, just for the sake of the example, let's pretend that it looks like this. So this would be after this triggered, but then the pink player, because they have 2 bots placed there, is going to be able to either gain a scrap or gain the card here. Now, to gain any card, you also have to pay their scrap value, so that one would cost us 2 scrap to be able to do so, but where we already have a pink card, that can be really good for us because, again, you are working towards set collection. So in order to do this, we would pay the 2 scrap if we wanted to take that card. and then it would be placed to the rightmost of any of our areas. So we would be able to start over here, or additionally, as you remember, we do have combo over here, so we'd be able to place this to trigger the combo for that card in the future. Now, there is a little bit where you're able to switch around cards during the cleanup phase, but in general, you're going to want to intentionally place cards where you think they are the most useful. Now, because we took that card, we would take one of our cubes back into our inactive bots, and then the yellow player would be able to gain a scrap. So they would also have to remove this and gain a scrap, but they are able to do so. And if there was an example where, for example, if dominance looked like this over in this area and this was the sector that was activated, the pink player would not do anything. So these players would both get to take either a scrap or a card, and if the first player chose to take the scrap, the other player must take the card, but any third player in that dominance is not going to be able to do anything at all. Now, normally when the dice are rolled, if it's two different values, you'll have two different sectors activating. So you'll start with the lowest number sector, meaning sector 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if you did have two different values, for example, a 3 and a 1, those would be the different sectors that are activated during that player's turn. Now, next after this is going to be the deploy phase. So players are able to deploy out their deployable bots. Now, in order to deploy, there is a rule where you must place more bots than is previously there if you don't have dominance. So for example, over here where we are the only character there, we are able to just deploy one bot over there if we wanted to. But here where there's already a blue player, if we wanted to dominate this area, we would have to place 2 of our deployable bots. Now, if, for example, we wanted to be in this area here, you just have to be more than the player with the most. So where there are 2 blue, we would have to have 3 cubes over here, and we would be able to place over here. You don't have to have more total, you just have to have more than the most powerful player there. So you are able to deploy out all of your bots throughout this different area. And then you are also able to deploy your Igor. So your Igor is going to be able to do a few different things for you, and if they are in their perch, then you're able to reroll one or both of your dice before assigning them into your lab. So during that lab phase, he is going to give you rerolls, but only if he's in this specific section here. Another thing that you're able to do is put your Igor into the scrap summit, which is this center here. And to do that, you're going to be able to gain a scrap. So this is a way for you to gain even more scrap if you feel you need that and you don't need the rerolls. But another thing that you're able to do is deploy your Igor to a specific area. Now they count as half of a bot, but they can be placed where other bots are. So for example, he would be able to be placed here, but when looking at dominance, the blue player has 1 point of dominance where we only have a half of a point because Igor counts as half of a bot. But something that's very clever is that Igor is able to take things back for you. So when you are taking from a specific area, if you choose to purchase a card, they could be the only one in that particular area. And even if they are with some of your bots, you are able to use the Igor to retrieve the things for you. So that can be very strategic so that you leave more bots out into the scrapyard and you're using your Igors to run the items back and forth for you back to your lab. Now, finally is the cleanup phase, and this is when you would replace any cards that have been purchased. They would flip out from the deck here, which has been shuffled, and then after that, you are able to swap any 2 cards from rooms 1 through 9. So you are able to swap them around, hopefully having you able to activate combos, and as I said, if you have doubles activate in certain areas, you get that whole column, meaning that you may want to move some of your cards around to fit that as well. Now, that is the general pace of play of the game, is that players are going to be going through these 6 different phases, reviving themselves if they need to, going on to their blast phase, going through their entire lab, then collecting, and then deploying out all of their bots and Igors before cleaning up and then passing on to the next player. But during other players' turns, a lot of things are going to matter, such as what's happening in the scrapyard and which sectors happen to be activated, because if you have some bots or an Igor there, you might be able to score some stuff for yourself before it's even your turn. And also charging up your different abilities is going to be very, very important. Your shields are going to be used during other players' turns, that if you're hit with a blast, you're able to use that shield to stop it, but you also have 2 other special abilities that you're able to activate during your turn as well. Now, section 10 is going to give you a battery, which is an additional battery that you're able to use. So during your turn, as long as you have any charge cubes here, you are able to remove it to activate any card that has not been activated during your lab phase. So for example, if we had already activated this row here, we would be able to use our battery to activate one of these or any other cards that we might have in play. Now, your shield, as I noted, is what's going to protect you from blasts. And then your wild shot is going to be something that's very interesting, and it's another way for you to do damage to other players. So you may want to choose to bank this and have multiple wild shots available to you, and you will remove a charge cube every time that you use it. Now, these wild shots are going to hurt other players, and ultimately it can affect their sets and their death ray blasts that they're able to do, but it's not doing actual blast damage, and you aren't able to shield against it. So when you do this, you are able to roll 2d6, and then that's going to be the sector that you're attacking. So for example, this is a 6, and we would be able to attack the 6th sector on another player. If there's a card there, it's destroyed, and if there isn't a card there, then it's actually a miss. But this is something that you can use your banked dice for as well, meaning that if you want to plan to attack a certain area, if your dice don't roll the way you want to, you perhaps might be able to use a banked dice to attack a very specific card. And as I said, if it removes a piece of their set collection, then it's going to reduce the amount of blasts that they're going to be able to do. Now, finally, there's an advanced mode where you're able to gain these Igor blueprints. So you can see that there's one for every color, and you're going to be gaining these when you're working toward the set collection for the cards in your lab. Now, in order to gain these, you would have to have 3 of the same color, either within a row or a column. So if we were able to do that, for example, if we gained another pink card and then we were able to swap our prototype out to a different area, we would have 3 pink in a row and we would be able to gain this particular blueprint. Now, you can only ever gain 1 throughout the game, so be careful about which one you choose to work toward, but you're able to gain that blueprint and then choose which side you want it to be on. So, for example, our pink one here is Body Protocol. At any time, when tied, you may destroy an active bot to beat the tie. This applies to any roll made during any phase of play. So you can see where that can be very strong because it's very, very flexible. But if you chose the other side, it would be Debauchery. Destroy any 2 of your devices, steal any 1 device from an enemy scientist. So you can see that this is something that could also be very, very advantageous for you because you are destroying your own devices, but then you are stealing one from an enemy scientist, which can be very cool and make or break, again, the different things that you're trying to do. Now, finally, just to give you an example of the cards that are available throughout the game, you saw some of the more standard cards that players are able to get, but there are going to be other things that you're able to gain as well, such as specials. And again, these specials, as you can see, do not have a color, so they do not contribute toward your set collection. However, this is at any time, revive your scientist, destroy this device. So this is something that you could use to have available to you, use it to revive your scientist, and then destroy it, opening up that spot on your board to perhaps increase your set collection, and that can be very strong. Now, another great card the players are going to want to gain throughout the game are going to be these crazy diamonds. So these crazy diamonds are just a wild where they don't have abilities, but they are going to help you toward your blast rate and your set collection because the amount of blasts that you're able to do is going to be very, very important, and you're able to reset what color this acts as every turn. So it will act as a specific color, but depending on what you're doing and where you're moving it around your board, you're going to be able to use this. Now, this is something that could be a very good target for a wild shot where players may try to destroy this on you, but otherwise it's going to give you a hand up on that set collection aspect. Now, another thing that players are going to be able to draw when they draw into this area are going to be events. So for example, here we have Faded Storm. When drawn, all players gain a charge cube in their 10, 11, or 12 lab section, individual player's choice. So when this event happens, players are going to be able to take 1 charge cube and place it wherever they would like, and this is happening during the cleanup phase when these cards are placed out, meaning that the active player is going to be the one to act first if there's ever a need for player order in that instance. So you can see throughout the deck that there are events that players are going to go through, as well as those special cards, and then additionally there are going to be these upgrades. So here you can see that this is an upgrade for your battery, and it's going to give you a battery augment of roll a d6 and bank its value. If already a banked value, roll again until you are able to bank. So you're able to bank extra things instead with your battery charge, and that's something that would be placed over here to be augmented. Dicey Devices is going to be a game where at first you're going to be worried about boosting up your death rate, making as many blasts as possible, where if you are able to roll this nuke die, there's also a special where if you roll on this side, you're doing 2 points of damage instead. So you are going to be working toward blasting as much as possible, but within that, you're going to want to make your lab as good as it can be, because with the set collection of the different colors, certain cards are going to have a lot of synergy together, such as the different combos, but sometimes you're going to have those wilds in there where they are contributing toward what you're able to blast, but they aren't giving you an inherent ability. So you are going to want to be able to blast as much as possible, but the nuance in there is going to be how you choose to build out your lab and what resources you choose to gain. And another thing that's going to be very important is the dice that you're rolling. So you're going to choose to bank certain dice because you might need them for when you're attacking or when you're defending, because defending is going to be extremely important, especially if you only have so many shields charged for you. But when you're rolling these dice as well, when you're activating certain parts of your lab, you might want something banked to be able to use that. So the banking system is going to be very good for players, especially early on, to bank certain dice and then be able to use them later. Another strategy is going to be looking at what player is next, because players are going to be blasting everywhere and trying to fire off these shots, and the only way to win is to be the only unincapacitated player. So in a 2-player game, the game will end immediately where you're able to blast at an opponent, they're able to defend and then try to revive themselves immediately. If they aren't able to revive themselves, you will win the game. But in a multiple player game, you're trying to be the last one standing. So where you might be working up your lab and try to attack other players, you're also wanting to pay attention to what other players are doing, because they might be attacking each other for you, and then you can be the one left alive. These death ring modules are also going to be extremely important because you are able to swap them out by paying scrap, but scrap is easy come, easy go, and you want to save as much scrap as possible because it's the only sure way for you to be able to revive yourself. You are able to roll and perhaps have banked dice to be able to save yourself, but the scrap is going to come in really, really handy, and you want to make sure you have enough to be able to revive yourself, especially when people's death rays are finally active. But that being said, making sure that you roll the specific dice you want with something that is banked is also going to be very important, or leaving your Igor up here to make sure that you're able to re-roll one or both dice when that happens, because you may want to purchase a specific card here in the scrapyard, and the only way to do so is to have that sector be the one that activates when you know that you have more control in that area. So for example, the pink player, if they wanted a card from sectors 2, 4, or 5, during their turn, they would want to make sure that they had that available either by re-rolling or having banked dice, because that's how they're going to have the advantage over being able to take the cards from these areas. Overall, the set collection is going to be very satisfying, especially when you're able to trigger certain combos. That can be very, very good. Or again, when you're able to use doubles, you can activate a column instead of a row and really surprise other players. Now, your wild shots are also going to be very, very cool to take out certain cards on other players and be strategic, but overall, it's all going to come down to whoever is the last one standing. Now, this has been a preview of Dicey Devices. You can check out the Kickstarter link down below for everything that they have planned. Thank you all for watching the Board Game Co channel. I've been Professor Meg, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!